issue to be alarmed of. Then we have had some deforestation in watersheds and catchments. As a drinking water professionals, I would like to highlight challenges in providing drinking water in a much more detail. The drinking water requirements is merely 2% of the river discharge that we do take place in Sri Lanka. You would say that is a very small quantity, but still it's a matter for concern because there is variability of rainfall. I would not go into the details, but this one I would say the climate change of catchment characteristics due to land use and the deforestation, of course, had led to rainfall variability and accelerated hydrological cycle. That means flash floods and frequent droughts. Now, that had led to the uneven distribution of safe drinking water for the entire city. Then I would like to touch upon what is IWRM. It is appropriate to draw your attention to the hydrological perestroika for sustainable utilization of water then. For 6.5 and 6.6. I will not read it through, but I will go into the Sustainable Development Goal number 6. Ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. Now, the big question is, how do we achieve SDG 6 through integrated water resource management? Our Sri Lankan vision for the future is we are dreaming for, we are planning for strong water that is generated through the old forest is allowed to soak into the ground, supporting healthy river flows that provide drinking water. Then the next point is drinking water supplies are optimized through efficiency and conservation. Leaving more water in the river. And the next one is the wastewater history cycle. Okay. Demand side management, I will just go through. We are in the process of introducing to recognize the water footprint that especially the major bulk users do have on the environment. And we have a tariff structure in place to discourage actually the higher users. And we are encouraging the use of secondary water. So, building blocks for IWRA. I would not again go through it. Now, let me conclude that sustainable water management entails several considerations: water management, nature preservation, land use and farming practices, and introduction of new technologies in life science. Therefore, sustainable water resources management requires the partnership of all the stakeholders. Thank you very much.
Speak loudly or something. Oh, yeah, finished.
Thank you. Again, we had a very comprehensive presentation and lots of ideas and suggestions came up, but we'll take comments from the floor later on because time is running out. May I invite now Dr. Tony M. Dano from Philippines.
Philippine delegation would like to express our thanks to the organizer for inviting us to this conference. So let me present the country paper of the Philippines on integrated water resources management. So the Philippines is actually an archipelagic country comprising of 7,110 islands with land area of about 300,000 square kilometers, 42% of which is agricultural land. So the 2015 population based on census shows that we are about 100.98 million Filipinos. Or we could say we have a population density of 337 persons per kilometer, which when we compare to 2010, which is about 308 persons per square kilometers, and it shows some increase. And as one of Asia's fastest urbanizing country, of course, the rapid urbanization has put a lot of pressure in our resource. So the table, you can see, presents the key demographic and economic estimates. Average population growth rate declined from 2.4 in 1990s to targeted about 1% in 2030 to 2040. But currently, our population growth rate is about 1.6%. GDP is about $292 billion US dollar. So the country is actually endowed with rich natural resources, of course, including water. And these are actually very essential for the country's economic development and in meeting its sustainable development goal. As a tropical country, we would say that the average rainfall is about 2,300 millimeters, and this serves as source of the water of our 421 principal rivers. So overall, the total available freshwater resource is about 145,900 million cubic meter per year, based on 80% probability for surface water, with a groundwater recharge of about 20,000 million cubic meter per year. The data from Philippine Environment Monitor, however, shows that some regions have experienced problem on water scarcity. So the recognition of the importance of river basin approach in the Philippines is apparently linked to the growing water demand for domestic and other uses. So the 421 principal river basin constitutes 70% of the terrestrial area of our country, and of which 18 were considered as major river basins. The major river basins comprise 36% of the total land mass of the country. So I won't be discussing more on the role of river basin. I think we all understood relative into its role in water in terms of livelihood. But like other countries, human economic development caused some problems in terms of reducing productivity and destroying the life support system of the downstream river. And the advent of climate change has further stressed the already fragile ecosystem of our river basin. So the government recognized that it must focus its intervention within the river basin in order to ascertain water supply to all Filipinos. So you can see the distribution of where these 18 major river basins and the area relative to its location in the Philippines. So an example of one of the major river basin that actually covers 27,753 square kilometers. So in terms of groundwater contributes 14% of the total water resources potential, and of which 50% is actually utilized for drinking. And a high percentage, about 86% of our pipe water supply system uses groundwater as source. But based on the water rights granted by NWRB, its National Water Resources Board, 49% of the groundwater is consumed for domestic sector and the remaining are shared by agriculture, industry, and others. And about 60% of the groundwater extraction is without water right permits, resulting in indiscriminate withdrawal. So the National Water Resources Board is putting now more efforts to have these water users secure water permits. So in terms of water quality, pollution of water resources in general comes from wastewater, agricultural runoffs, and the like. So another problem is, of course, the saline water intrusion, which generally caused by over-exploitation or excessive withdrawal of water in some basins. So this reduces water availability in some areas. One example of our river is the Pasig River, which now is actually polluted at this time, but we look at it at the good side that it provides us a challenge in rehabilitating a river system. So in terms of the present status of access to water and sanitation, the Philippine government recognized that in order to achieve the country's vision of inclusive growth and poverty reduction, improved water supply and sanitation is essential. So for the country as a whole, sustainable access to adequate water supply and sanitation is needed to protect the health and reduce water sanitation-related costs, malnutrition, and losses in productivity. So actually, the water supply and sanitation roadmap of our country adopts the IWRM framework in the sector management and is guided by the Philippine IWRM plan framework. So the framework enables the integration of water supply sector to the overall social and economic agenda of the nation, whereby both land and water resources are linked and the promotion of decentralized water governance at the lowest level is promoted. So you can see in the board the data from UNICEF, World Health Organization Joint Monitoring Program, which indicate that the Philippines is on track in meeting the Sustainable Development Target for water supply and sanitations. Although in sanitations, a little bit, let's say, failed. You know? But this figure could have significantly changed with the current 2017 population. Though efforts by water service providers in improving sanitation services continues. So this sector vision looks at universal access to water supply and sanitation, that such access is a human right issue with special concern given to the poor and the disadvantaged. So the government agencies recognized that the achievement of the sector visions involves strengthening water supply and wastewater management institutions, developing capacities of the agencies, water supply providers, and other major stakeholders. And thirdly, very close to IWRM's building strategic alliances between legislative and executive champions in the government, the public and private sector, and communities. So the Asian Development Bank report in 2013 actually, indicated that to achieve the government target for 2025, I cannot see this already. Okay, sorry. 2025 for water supply, the additional population requiring access is estimated at 2.75 million per year, with a total investment requirements of 838 million per year. So for sanitation, to achieve universal coverage by 2028, The additional population requiring access annually is estimated at 3 million with a total investment requirement of 619 million per year. So the obstacles actually in achieving the universal or to improve water supply and sanitation are primarily institutional and financial. Secondly, about regulation remains fragmented. No? But while the challenges are many, the prospects for progress are improving. So the government has signaled its high-level commitment to rationalize institutional arrangements. So let me go into the achievement in terms of IWRM implementation. IWRM referred as a process which promotes coordinated development and management of water, land as defined by our early speaker. So we recognize that IWRM is a process that could enhance water resources management towards environmental sustainability and economic efficiency. So the medium-term Philippine Development Plan of 2004 actually first officially adopted the IWRM approach as the general strategy in water resources management. And the National IWRM Plan Framework and the National Integrated River Management and Development Framework developed in 2006 and 2007 respectively contained this. So over the last 10 years, IWRM process has been supported by a number of development partners. Also, let me cite that the Philippine Water Code of 1976 contained already important elements of IWRM even before the Dublin Conference. So the 1976, the country was divided into 12 water resources regions, and of which river basin plans were developed by the then National Water Resources Council. So IWRM was recognized as the approach to improve planning, conservation, and other key important points. So when we go into river basin planning, we really started with putting premium on IEC so as to get the support of the different stakeholders. And then the need for an updated, integrated river basin master plan was found essential to set the direction and guide interventions needed to address water-related issues on the basin or in a watershed. And then the decision of the Cabinet Cluster on Climate Change and Adaptation and Mitigation Committee to adopt our 18 major river basin as priority area for development interventions further necessitates the need to formulate and update our river basin master plan. So that's actually the decisions of the 11 departments composing the cabinet telling us to use the 18 river basin. So what we are doing is actually the DNR through RBCO guides the planning process of the 18 major basins, not 3, but the other also principal river basins. So the master plan followed the process. RBCO initiates, gets fund to get the service provider. The consultant used the guiding documents for the planning, both the IWRM planning framework of 2007 and the IRBDM or Integrated River Basin Master Plan in 2006. So lastly, the River Master Plan is approved and endorsed by the Regional Development Council or the local officials of the basin. Example of the master plan and commonly issues which included in the master plan: degradations, pollutions, weak river governance, biodiversity, and the like. So the IWRM planning guidelines serve as guide, and the planning follows the 5 steps: the inception, setting, boundary, situational analysis, strategy building, action planning, and the implementation of the strategy as contained in the River Basin Master Plan. Secondly, we put focus on establishment of river basin organizations. For past decades, institutions actually were established for basin planning and management. But some of these ceased operations for various reasons. But such experience provides us lesson in current efforts in establishing river basin organizations. So you can see the status of the different river basins in river basin organizations in our country, the name of the river basin, and the legal instruments or the policy needed for them to function. Okay, and the structure wherein there's the civil society, the academe, the different local officials are tackling the different issues as raised to us, but be it be in the environment, the disaster, and the like. So in terms of plans and strategies and targets for achieving SDG 6, we subscribe that river basin are the fundamental unit for managing our country's water resource. So good water governance must be supported at both ends of the sector by the government and by the users. So that is why we put premium in our strategy, the establishment of local river basin organizations. So such organizations can bring together government and stakeholders to plan and implement IWRM principles. So the government or basin actually ecosystem approach adheres to these three basic actions. Establish RBOs that practice stakeholders' participation, improve coordination system between the national, local for planning, data gathering, and monitoring and evaluation, and prepare the basin master plan that reflects the trend in water demands and uses. As a way forward, consistent with the approved IRB MDP, the Regional River Basin Management Office shall continue to provide basin-wide direction and supervision in the implementation of plans, programs, and strategies embedded in the plan. And the common issues raised is like the worsening water pollution in highly urbanized areas, and investment plans espoused in the master plan are common in all these master plans. So our approach would be to strengthen coordination with the WAS or the sanitation health mandated agencies. Secondly, to continue to deliberate on employing economic instruments such as pollution fines and environmental taxes as recommended in the master plan. And these are actually the implementation plan we are doing. The plan should be popular, known to everybody, have this enabling mechanism, the continuous planning, the monitoring, and the replanning if there's a need. Another thing is we need to continue to promote IWRM to mobilize support for the protection, rehabilitation, and conservation of our country's river basin. We recognize that public participation can be enhanced through production and dissemination of IEC materials, the conduct of international river summit. Actually, this is a biannual multi-partner initiative in partnership with the League of Cities in the Philippines. So these are really by the local officials. So it is deemed appropriate venue as water supply and sanitation problem is common in all cities of the Philippines. And thirdly, organize water-related events to increase awareness and support of the different stakeholders and to continue to strengthen coordination with water-mandated agencies in our country. So you can see the Cagayan River Basin Management Council in actions with people involved, led by church group, and to heighten advocacy, the conduct of International River Summit is actually presided by our president himself. And lastly, when maybe I would say last part that I would like to share relative into our way forward is in terms of water security. Actually, we have conducted 4 pre-summit that address the different agenda on cities and settlement, disaster, environment, and the like. Were conducted, but at the end of the year, we will be having our National Summit for Water Security. So the National Water Summit will set what the country wants to achieve in water management in the next decade. So the next generation of River Basin Master Plan shall include this concept as part of the objective of water management. Thank you, and in behalf of the department, again, thank you for the organizers for inviting us.
Thank you, Mr. Dano. That was very interesting and useful, especially when you talk about river basin organization. Since time is short, I will not try to summarize what you said, but may I now invite Mr. Tomoyuki Okada from Japan. Presentation is here.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Tomoyuki Okada from the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism, Japan. First of all, I'd like to thank the government of Bangladesh to give me this precious opportunity. This is on the restoration of river ecosystem in Japan. As you know, SDG 6.6 target has the restoration of different ecosystems, including the river. So I'd like to explain Japan's lesson we learned so far. My presentation is focusing on good practices and some bad practices we implemented, and ecosystem and environmental policies review we conducted. First of all, river management is based on the River Act in Japan, started from 1896. And in 1997, we added another objective of environmental conservation to the existing flood control and water use objectives. This is the river running through the very center of Tokyo. On the left hand, you see the picture drawn in 1850s. The river runs through the nature at that time. But now, in the center photo shows the river is covered with concrete. And on the right side, we are now conducting redevelopment project here and draw people's attention and invite people to the river again. So there are several bad practices we happen to make.